Will the Senate please come to order? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Ocasio?
Present.
Senator Baker? Senator Chang?
Here.
Senator DeCoit? Senator Dela Cruz? Senator Favela? Senator Gabbard? Senator Ihara?
Excused?
Senator Inoue?
Present.
Senator Senator Kanuha?
Here.
Senator Keith Agaran? Senator Keoho Kalole? Senator Kidani?
Aloha.
Senator Kim? Senator Lee? Senator Misalucha?
Present.
Senator Moriwaki?
Present.
Senator Nishihara? Senator Rhodes? Senator Riviere? Senator San Buenaventura? Senator Shimabukuro? Senator Taniguchi?
Here.
Senator Wakai? Mr. President,
Present.
24 present, 1 excused.
Thank you. The chair has read the journal of the preceding day and approves the same. Are there any introductions this morning? Senator Misalucha.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure whether my seatmate, my wonderful seatmate here would be acknowledging his wife in the audience, but I do want to acknowledge the presence of Cindy McMillan, the Communications Director at the Office of the Governor.
Further introductions this morning. Senator Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to welcome Crystal Kawabata, the Governor's Digital Media Specialist, and Ray Kitagawa, Governor's Communication Specialist. Could you please stand and be recognized? And I would also like to welcome my favorite constituent, Cindy McMillan.
Thank you. Any further introductions? Not, Madam Clerk.
House Communication number 817 and 818 inform the Senate that the House made changes to conferees for House Bill 2466. And House Communication number 819 informs the Senate that the House has reconsidered its action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the Senate to House Bill 1575, Senate Draft 2.
File.
On page 2, Conference Committee Report numbers 253-22 to 255-22 for 48-hour notice.
So ordered.
On pages 3 to 12, Standing Committee Report numbers 4083 to 4103 for 1-day notice.
So ordered.
On page 12, Advise and Consent.
If there are no objections from the members, we will be taking advise and consent on consent.
Standing Committee Report number 4082 on Governor's Messages for Adoption.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Do we have any reservations? Any no votes? The nominees for said governor's messages have been confirmed.
I'm sorry, yes, 25 ayes, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Senator Ocasio?
I didn't realize we were taking all of this at one time as opposed to the individual.
So you had reservations?
I actually would like to register an vote of opposition to GM 788.
Again, we have no vote, corrected, no vote by Senator Ocasio. Senator Favela, did you have any reservation on? So noted. Any other noes or objections? If not, do we have unanimous consent?
We have 25 ayes on GM 787 and 789, 24 ayes and 1 no on GM 788.
Thank you. The nominees for said governor's messages have been confirmed. Senator Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could be permitted a late introduction.
Please proceed.
It's my pleasure to introduce Marissa Adaro, one of the latest appointments to the Commission on the Status of Women.
Now you can stand up.
She's joined today by her spouse, Jason Adaro, her mother, Phyllis Angawai, and J.C. Mikulanich, Director of Government Relations for Queens Health Systems, and also my legislative attorney, Jesse Fay. Could you all rise and be acknowledged? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
On page 13, final reading of the state budget.
If there are no objections from the members, we'll be taking final reading on consent.
Conference Committee Report number 209-22, final reading of House Bill 1600, Conference Draft 1, relating to the state budget.
Is there any discussion? Senator Dela Cruz,
Thank you, Mr. President, in support.
please proceed.
Okay, so last time when I gave my remarks, we're wearing the mask, and it's hard to give like a 50-page speech wearing your mask. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just give some highlights and then written remarks, and I'll share it with the members. Mr. President, working with the committee, members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, we have shored up the largest budget surplus in the history of the state of Hawaii. And we ask for your support of the Senate's conference position in the supplemental budget. I want to give a big mahalo to Finance Chair. I appreciate her ability to see the big picture and understand the inner workings of government and how it operates. We met almost every day for 3 weeks, hours on end, discussing all of your priorities, all of the House's priorities, all of the legislature's priorities, our community's priorities, the administration's priorities, to develop a sound budget, a complete budget. But to just demonstrate how she understands the inner workings of our government. Just look at what she was able to do in implementing the restaurant card during COVID, and our conversations about that and how we can make sure we help small business. Another example of her understanding is when she volunteered to work at the unemployment office to process claims. I know the COVID committee, when we went to the convention center, we would see her working, and we all appreciate the effort that she brought there. Working closely with House Finance, the Senate put together a budget that aims to make progress, to make programs and services whole again after budget reductions over the last 2 years. Special attention was paid to providing salary differentials for hard to recruit and retain state positions. In addition, making available workforce development, education, and training opportunities to ensure that the state government employment and public service remain competitive and sought after career choice. We have worked countless hours to craft a budget that ensures that our government will continue to serve the people of this great state with fiscal sustainability and fidelity. With increased revenue collections coupled with the reality that our communities are still rebounding from record job losses, business closures, and the need to secure affordable housing and healthcare, we have been vigilant to assemble a budget that is fiscally prudent yet courageous in addressing numerous one-time expenditures for sorely needed repairs and maintenance in our schools, hospitals, parks, highways, and other government facilities. We are boldly moving forward with infusing large appropriations toward mental health services, dental care, child welfare safeguards, kupuna care and caregiver programs, and affordable home and rental projects across the state. The Senate Conference position of supplemental budget for fiscal years 22 to 23 puts forth a state budget total of $7.4 billion in general funds and $15.7 billion in all means of financing in fiscal years 22 and $8.7 billion in general funds and $16.9 million in all means of financing for fiscal year 23. The House Bill 1600 includes the base budget for the executive branch for fiscal years 21 from Act 88, Session Laws of Hawaii, incorporates many of the governor's supplemental budget requests, restores many general funded positions, and utilizes surplus funds on one-time expenditures that will not require year after year funding. As a result of passage of House Bill 1600, our great state will benefit in the following ways. For agriculture, $650,000 for rabies quarantine, $425,000 for invasive pet species such as coffee berry borer beetle, spittlebug, and Japanese beetle, mainly impacting two industries, coffee and ranching. $26 million to upgrade the Wahiwa Dam and spillway and purchase land at fee simple interest. $660,000 for aquaculture development, including 4 permanent positions and operating expenses. $1.5 million for security services to address trespassing, abandonment of vehicles on agricultural land, and other security issues on vacant land. $800,000 for ungulate fencing for local farmers, primarily on neighbor islands. $550,000 for improvement of Menehune Ditch. $800,000 for irrigation management. $1.5 million for accelerator awards to support startup companies. Excuse me. $225,000 to fund 1 economist position and 2 surveys to double local food production with the USDA, and $800,000 for a pesticide disposal program. For culture and arts, $500,000 for a creative grant program for the State Foundation on Culture and Arts, $200,000 for an artist fellowship program, $2 million to support the mission of Iolani Palace, $10 million for Bishop Museum for capital improvements, and $7.5 million to support programming and operations of the Bishop Museum. For economic and workforce development, $660,000 to cover the cost of moving expenses for DBED's offices. $160,000 in state matching funds for the Business Development and Support Division to apply for federal grants of $800,000 to support eligible small business concerns. $490,000 and 7 new positions for the Hawaii State Energy Office to support renewable energy projects across the state. $1.5 million for accelerator awards to support startup companies, $1 million for manufacturing assistance program award, $1.5 million for Hawaii Small Business Innovation Research Grants, $1 million in state matching funds for naval research grants, $2.3 million to establish a carbon smart land management assistance pilot program and Hawaii Air Noise and Safety Task Force, $13.8 million for electrical infrastructure upgrades to Kalailoa, $450,000 for one-stop workforce information for workforce development, $5.2 million for 7 positions for high school and post-high school internships across state departments, $321 million for unemployment benefit payment program to increase unemployment benefit payments, $150,000 to fund 5 positions for Office of Community Services to administer grant and aid awards, and $2 million for emergency food assistance programs. For education, $32.5 million for teacher differentials to address several areas, including hard-to-staff concerns in certain geographical locations, special education, and Hawaiian language immersion. $6.3 million to furnish and equip new classrooms across the state. $118,000 and 1 position for Alternative Learning Center in Nanakuli, Waianae. $2.8 million to add 21 positions to establish a new nursing section to coordinate and provide clinical supervision for schools. $332,000 and 2 positions for Hawaii State Teacher Fellows Program, which looks to build and empower teacher voices and perspectives. $1.1 million to increase index complex area administration program for classroom supplies, instructional materials, and resources for professional learning and communities, and technology to provide equity to access to students. $600,000 for grow your own teacher stipends, $1 million for the pilot special education teacher mentor program, $1 million to deploy sensor network in air-conditioned classrooms to optimize classroom air conditioning, $1 million to install security cameras at 11 libraries, $750,000 for public libraries to purchase digital and physical materials, $2 million to provide menstrual products at schools, $3 million to convert 40-year-old barcode system to RFID technology for our libraries, positions, and $200,000 for workforce development coordination at McKinley and Waipahu School for Adults, $250,000 for education programs for incarcerated women, $2 million for charter school teacher differentials, $850,000 for the Waianae Fish Hatchery Program, and $98,000 for one position for charter schools to ensure civil rights compliance, and $130 million for the repricing for contracts for our educators. At the University of Hawaii, $7.2 million and $800,000 in funds for UH Manoa and UH Hilo athletics, $1.7 million to expand Jabsom's graduate residency program to neighbor islands, $86,000 for Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology, $1.8 million for additional nursing and clinical instructors, $580,000 to improve the Ernst Theater at UH Manoa, $660,000 and 4 positions to address teacher shortage in Hawaii, $190,000 and 2 positions for an aviation program at UH Hilo, $2.9 million and 14 positions for Imiloa Immersion Program at UH Hilo, $836,000 and 3 positions for the Maui Food Innovation Center, $390,000 and 8 positions for the Culinary Institute of the Pacific at KCC, and $1.5 million and 7 positions for computer science engineering positions for the IT internship program at UH Manoa and UH Hilo. For our natural resources protection and management of the environment, $3 million for public lands management operating expenses, nearly $900,000 and 7 new land agent positions across the state, $1.8 million in additional funds for first responders overtime, helicopter contracts, and repair of firefighting equipment for the Native Resources and Fire Protection Program, $350,000 in additional funds for rapid ohia death, $1.5 million in additional funds for Hawaii Invasive Species Council, $1.2 million and 3 positions for access deer mitigation, $454,000 in salary increases for 17 senior historic preservation positions for recruitment and retention to ensure SHPE gets the help it needs, $615,000 for historic preservation to handle anticipated workflow and incoming infrastructure of federal funds, $50,000 for the creation of a rustic parking area and trail maintenance at Manawili Trail, $400,000 for Kirk, $2 million for security services at critical infrastructure locations, $290,000 and 12 positions for the Marine Security Division to provide additional protection for Hawaii's beaches and wildlife, $500,000 for Malaya Harbor, $4 million for Honokahau Small Boat Harbor wastewater infrastructure, $2 million trail cleanup and restoration, $72,000 and 2 cultural resource specialist positions for Kirk, and $200,000 for the Ahumoku Advisory Committee. For government operations, $3.3 million for retainment and pay differential for the Attorney General's office, $1.6 million to revitalize the statewide career criminal and victim witness program, $115,000 and 3 positions to establish victim witness support team to assist victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, $1.6 million to establish a new office for human trafficking abatement, $6.7 million to modernize the aging Keiki database for the Keiki Support Enforcement Services Division, $33 million to leverage federal funds to expand broadband deployment, $335 million to restore pre-funding of other post-employment benefits, 8 positions and $547,000 for the Division of Vocational Licensing to improve processing of licensure applications, $100,000 to establish 1 threat assessment planner for the Office of Homeland Security, $645,000 to clear foliage around the State Veterans Cemetery, $125,000 to obtain excavator and utility tractor for our state veteran cemetery to assist with burial and groundskeeping duties. Restoration of $5 million to our major disaster fund, and $396,000 for contracts, electricity, travel, and transportation for our National Guard. $35 million for plans, design, and construction and equipment for infrastructure for Ha'ima. For Health and Human Services, $5 million for COVID-19 testing, $16 million for HHSC, $500,000 for needs and site assessment for New Kona Hospital, nearly $9 million for the Maui Health System, $16 million for HHSC Oahu Region, $540,000 in 8 positions, including 3 clinical psychologists and 3 psychiatrists for adult mental health outpatient, $3.5 million for Hawaii State Hospital forensic building operations, $14 million for Hawaii State Laboratory for modernizing our existing lab facility, $60,000 to restore funding for 1 communication access specialist, whose primary responsibility includes credential signing, language interpreters, and communications access for our state programs and services. $1.2 million for ambulances for Hawaii County, $1.6 million for Maui and Kauai emergency medical services, $280,000 in 5 positions for Office of Long-Term Care Ombudsman, $2.6 million for Kapuna programs, $1.5 million for aging and disability resource centers across our state, $200,000 for 1 program specialist for Office of Language Access, 2 additional social worker positions for Child Protective Services programs, $3 million in operating and 25 positions to implement a child care subsidy program within the department statewide for eligible low-income families, in addition to $7 million to assist families with child care payments. $2 million to fund a database and wage subsidy for early learning educators, $450,000 to fund maintenance and repair, as well as services to transfer youth to mental health residential programs, $400,000 for sex trafficking victim support services, $1.8 million for the exit retention bonus payment program to help families successfully exit the temporary assistance needy families program, $6 million for TANF program to procure innovative after-school services, $2.5 million for the department's response to COVID-19 and ongoing pandemic activities, nearly $6 million to expand postpartum coverage from 2 to 12 months for MedQuest patients to increase life-saving screening services, and $26 million to provide adult dental benefits to MedQuest patients under option 2, including both cleaning and treatment services. For housing, $500,000 in additional funds for rental assistance services program, $10 million for lift of federal fund ceiling increase for rental assistance services, $4 million for temporary assistance for other needy families, and $24 million to fund additional housing subsidies of up to $500 per month for TANF and TAONIF program participants who are participating in the First to Work program. For Native Hawaiians, $10 million for Native Hawaiian housing activities, $1 million to fund 20 positions important to land leases, loans, and fiscal services, and $35 million for planning and development for Hawaiian homesteads. For public safety, $320,000 to add 6 clinical psychologists to provide evening and weekend psychology services for inmates suffering mental health from mental health crisis, $870,000 to add 17 registered nurses to expand 24-hour nursing services to 5 correctional facilities, and $626,000 for Crime Victim Compensation Commission. For transportation, $17 million to revitalize the Wiki Wiki bus program to provide efficient and safe transportation, $1.2 million for routine maintenance at Lihue Airport, and $2.3 million to pay for increased costs of utilities at Kahului, Molokai, Lanai, and Kapalua Airport. For our harbors, $1.2 million in debt service increases to pay for debt service increases for the Johnson Controls Energy Saving Lease Financing Agreement, $1 million for increased costs for utilities, security services, and maintenance at the Honolulu, Kalailoa, Barbers Point, Hilo, Kawaihai, Kahului, Kaunakakai harbors. And for our highways, $2 million for invasive species removal focusing on albizia trees, $195,000 for repair and maintenance of streetlights and upgrades to LED in Hawaii County, $10 million to fund stored property and debris removal to clean up unauthorized encampments on state lands and to store important belongings, $800,000 for repair and maintenance for smart traffic controllers to continue Intelligent Transportation System Initiative, and $800,000 to purchase a mobile scanner to help with property damage and natural disaster assessment and mitigation. In closing, I'd like to thank the members of the Ways and Means Committee, all the members of the Senate leadership, and the committee chairs for their hard work. I'd like to acknowledge again the House members and the Finance Chair for their hard work, their effort, their time and dedication, as well as the efforts and hard work of our Vice Chair who handled the CIP. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Senator Keith Agaran.
I have some additional highlights and written remarks that I would like to submit to the journal.
So ordered. Any further discussion? Senator San Buenaventura,
I stand in strong support.
please proceed.
It's been over 2 decades since the Medicaid dental benefits have been eliminated from Medicaid, and I really thank WAM Chair, WAM Committee in finally funding what has long been needed for those in the Alice families. And not only that, the investment in early childhood education, this budget is finally putting us back into track, into the safety and health of our Alice family. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Favela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank the WAM Chair
In
and,
support, Senator Favela,
yes, I
please
support,
proceed.
strong support. I just want to thank the WAM Chair and even Finance Chair and our Vice Chair. You know, since I've been here, I just been seeing a lot of things being done here, and most of the difficult task is balancing our budget and getting our budget out. Not only for the programs that is so blessed to have, but just keeping Hawaii moving going forward. So I want to just add additional comments to the journal, if I could, Senate President.
So ordered. Further discussion? Not. I would also like to extend my thanks to the Ways and Means Chair, the Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee, all of the committee chairs. I think that the Ways and Means Chair did a great job in communicating with all of the committee chairs in listening and addressing your priorities and community concerns. Certainly to his staff and all of the support staff who have put in long hours to make sure that we could get the budget document prepared and here today before us for the final vote. Do we have unanimous consent?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 1600, CD1, passes final reading. Short recess subject to the call of the chair. Will the Senate please come back into order, Madam Clerk?
Beginning on page 13, floor amendments. Conference Committee Report Number 102-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3048, Conference Draft 1 relating to state funds.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to Senate Bill 3048 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 9, proposing an amendment to Senate Bill 3048, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 9 be adopted.
Senator Chang.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator De La Cruz.
Your Committee on Conference is requesting for this floor amendment to insert an appropriation of $1,040,000 for equipment improvements and digitization for HHFDC.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor amendment number 9 has been adopted. Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move to separate SB 3048 CD1 from Conference Committee Report 102-22.
Senator Chang.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 102-22. 48 hours notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 3048 CD2.
Conference Committee Report Number 116-22, final reading of House Bill 2512, Conference Draft 1 relating to Ohana zones.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to HB number 2512 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the floor amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 10, proposing an amendment to House Bill 2512, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 10 be adopted.
Senator Kanuha.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
Thank you. This floor amendment just fixes a typographical error that was inadvertently placed in the CD1.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, motion is carried. Floor amendment number 10 has been adopted. Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I move to separate HB number 2512 CD1 from Conference Committee Report number 116-22.
Senator Kanuha.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 116-22. 48 hours notice is hereby given for final reading of HB number 2512 CD2.
Conference Committee Report Number 175-22, final reading of House Bill 1800, Conference Draft 1 relating to climate mitigation.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to House Bill 1800 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 11, proposing an amendment to House Bill 1800, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment 11 be adopted.
Senator Gabbard.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator De La Cruz.
Your Committee on Conference is requesting for this floor amendment to insert appropriation language for $350,000 into the Energy Security Special Fund for the Hawaii State Energy Office to analyze pathways and to develop recommendations for achieving the state's economy-wide decarbonization goals as required to Section 4 of this bill.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, the motion is carried. Floor Amendment Number 11 has been adopted. Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move to separate House Bill 1800 CD1 from Conference Committee Report 175-22.
Senator Gabbard.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report Number 175-22. 48 hours notice is hereby given for final reading of HB number 1800 CD2.
On page 14, Conference Committee Report Number 202-22, final reading of House Bill 2424, Conference Draft 1 relating to child welfare services.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to HB number 2424 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 12, proposing an amendment to House Bill 2424, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 12 be adopted.
Senator Kanuha.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
Your conference committee, Mr. President, your conference committee just wishes to add a severability section to House Bill number 2424.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor Amendment Number 12 has been adopted. Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I move to separate HB number 2424 CD1 from Conference Committee Report number 202-22.
Senator Kanuha.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 202-22. 48 hours notice is hereby given for final reading of HB number 2424 CD2.
Conference Committee Report Number 217-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2218, Conference Draft 1, relating to a food hub pilot program.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to Senate Bill 2218 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the floor amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 14, proposing an amendment to Senate Bill 2218, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 14 be adopted.
Senator Gabbard.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator De La Cruz.
Your Committee on Conference is requesting for this floor amendment to remove the appropriation language of $750,000 in general obligation bonds and to move it to general revenue appropriation for the grants program. That this would be a total of $1.5 million for the Department of Agriculture Food Hub Pilot Grants Program.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor Amendment Number 14 has been adopted. Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move to separate SB 2218 CD1 from Conference Committee Report 217-22.
Senator Gabbard.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report Number 217-22. 48 hours notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 2218 CD2.
Conference Committee Report Number 236-22, final reading of Senate Bill 514, Conference Draft 1, relating to the general fund.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment SB number 514 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 13, proposing an amendment to Senate Bill 514, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 13 be adopted.
Senator Keith Agaran.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator De La Cruz.
Your Committee on Conference is requesting for this floor amendment to effect the taxable year to after 2020. The bill currently reads as 2021.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor Amendment Number 13 has been adopted. Senator De La Cruz.
Mr. President, I move to separate Senate Bill number 514 CD1 from Conference Committee Report 236-22.
Senator Keith Agaran.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 236-22. 48-hour notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 514 CD2.
On pages 14 to 35, final reading of the non-fiscal consent calendar. Final reading of the non-fiscal consent calendar beginning with Senate Bill 573, House Draft 1 on page 14 to Conference Committee Report number 252-22 on Senate Bill 2290, Conference Draft 1 on page 35.
Is there any discussion? Senator Keoho Kalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to submit comments to the Journal in support of Conference Committee Report number 11-22, House Bill 1768.
So ordered. Further discussion. Senator Keith Agaran.
Yes, Mr. President, I have some written remarks on various bills throughout this part of the calendar that I'd like to submit into the Journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent?
25 ayes.
Thank you. All bills on the non-fiscal consent calendar from SB 573 HD1 on page 14 to SB 2290 CD1 on page 35 pass final reading.
Final reading of the non-fiscal ordinary calendar beginning on page 36. Conference Committee Report number 1-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2752, Conference Draft 1, relating to abandoned wells.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Is it reservation, Senator Favela? A no vote for Senator Favela. Any other no votes? Any reservations? Reservation for Senator Acacio, Senator Kim.
President, we have reservations on Senate Bill 152, CD1, and 3165, CD1.
Was that on the consent calendar? We're on Senate Bill 2752. So one no vote for Senator Favela, one reservation for Senator Acacio.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2752 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 16-22, final reading of House Bill 1436, Conference Draft 1, relating to development rights.
Is there any discussion?
Yes,
Not-
Mr. President,
Senator
I have
King.
some written remarks in support that I'd like submitted to the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Senator Favela? No vote for Senator Favela. Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1436 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 27-22, final reading of Senate Bill 152, Conference Draft 1, relating to child passenger restraints.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Senator Acacio, is that a reservation? Reservation for Senator Kim. Any no, reservation Senator San Buenaventura. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 152 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 42-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3165, Conference Draft 1, relating to operating a vehicle under the influence of an intoxicant.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Senator Acacio, is that a reservation or a no vote?
No vote.
No vote for Senator Acacio, no vote for Senator Riviere. Any reservations? Reservations for Senators Morawaki and Kim. San Buenaventura.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 3165 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 52-22, final reading of House Bill 1567, Conference Draft 1, relating to criminal pretrial reform.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Senator Morawaki,
in opposition,
please proceed.
I support those who don't want persons jailed if they are too poor to pay cash bail. But I oppose mandating judges to release defendants over a broad swath of nonviolent offenses. The judges make their decisions, and under Chapter 804, they are required to evaluate all factors in determining the amount of bail and the conditions of release. Advocates point to the 2017 Criminal Pretrial Task Force recommendations enacted under Act 179 in 2019. This was prior to COVID-19 pandemic. The Attorney General reminds us the Criminal Justice Research Institute was to evaluate the effectiveness of Act 179 reforms as to whether they increased our safety and maximize release of those who pose no danger or flight risk. Before jumping the gun, why not gather data and establish policies that work to achieve Act 179's objectives? In other words, HB 1567 CD1 is premature. Many of those who steal from, accost, or taunt our residents, workers, and visitors, especially in Waikiki, if released, may well go on to commit violent crimes. 94% of crimes committed in Waikiki are so-called nonviolent. They include larceny, burglary, harassment, auto theft. This measure would require judges to release such offenders. Criminals target Waikiki because they know visitors are unlikely to come back and testify against them. Criminals target businesses because they know employees cannot pursue them for shoplifting. Police in my district complain about their frequent flyer problem, meaning they charge and arrest repeat offenders only to see them back on the streets 48 hours later. Already, judges frequently release nonviolent offenders on their own recognizance. This measure will exacerbate the problem of habitual nonviolent criminals by removing a needed judge's discretion. Judges should be able to evaluate all factors on a case-by-case basis to determine whether a person is a danger to the community, will be a risk of appearing in court, or will reoffend once released. This bill will also remove the prosecutor's ability to leverage drug offenders into treatment programs. The jail capacity problem shouldn't be addressed by forcing judges to release criminals to free up jail space or save money. For these reasons, I will vote no on this measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? So no vote for Senator Moriwaki, Senator Inouye, Senator Riviere, Senator Baker, Senator Kim, and Senator Kidani. Any reservations? Oh, no vote for Senator Favela, I'm sorry.
Eighteen ayes, 7 noes.
Thank you. HB 1567 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 37, Conference Committee Report number 53-22, final reading of House Bill 2075, Conference Draft 1, relating to firearms.
Is there any discussion? Do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Favela. Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2075 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 55-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2065, Conference Draft 1, relating to fishing.
Is there any discussion? Do we have unanimous consent? No votes. No vote for Senator Ocasio. Senator Favela, did you wish to speak?
Yeah.
Please
Sorry,
proceed.
I missed the last one on the firearms, but this, okay, with this, I'm in opposition to this measure solely because not only my community was very highly against it, but neighbor islands too. This is new technology that's being banned. We're not even trying to regulate them. We put a lot of exemptions on other things that is new technology, with the drones fighting all over the place and having minute times and all these kind of restrictions. But then, what about our fishermen who now getting up in age, maybe disabled, and now that they can go back out there with their family and probably go out there and fish with uluas, yeah? I know there's a lot of mixed feelings in here, but we're chastising a new technology that we're all open-minded to new technology. But then they have to have rules and they have to have regulations. But we're banning something that is new without even trying to regulate it. I understand some of these guys don't follow the rules and they follow the flight line over people surfing boats and people using the beach. But there's a lot of other things that people don't follow the rules, but we don't ban them, right? So this is the thing. We're gonna ban some people that now using new technology to provide food on the table for their family. Is this the big thing we want to do? We want to continue to ban these things? Then if we can do that, then we should ban long line shift fishing. We should do long net fishing that drags the reef and damage our environment. We need to ban a lot of stuff. But we're going to ban drones because a few individuals are inconvenient because the lines will cross over their swimming area or their boating area. We need to have restrictions and have laws to restrict them and not ban them. I'm totally against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Inouye?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of
Please
SB
proceed.
2065. I have comments that I'd like to have submitted into the journal.
So
Thank you,
are there-
Mr. President.
Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? No votes for Senator Favela and Ocasio. Any other no votes? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Kim.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 2065 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 57-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2398, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Hawaii Community Development Authority.
Is there any discussion?
Mr.
Not
President?
Senator Keith Agaran.
Yeah, I have some written remarks I'd like to submit to the journal in support of this bill.
So ordered. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Ocasio. Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2398 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 61-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2986, Conference Draft 1, relating to hemp.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have Senator Favela?
Thank you, Senator President. I rise in strong support
Please
of
proceed.
Bill 2986, ST1, HD2, CD1. Colleagues, we've been talking about, since I've been here, and before I've been here, we've been talking about hemp and how important hemp is. So the reason why I support this bill is because we need to first remember that hemp is not pakololo or marijuana. Hemp is, supposed to let you guys know that all that flyer you guys have on your guys' desk, sorry, it was for me. The reason why I gave you guys this paper, I guys want you guys to know the difference. A lot of you guys do know here because I got educated from you guys. But this is not pakololo, this is not marijuana. You cannot get high. The reason why I want to push this as much as we can push it, and I really love this bill, is because I believe totally in my heart that hemp will be the next industry for agriculture. Back in the day, tourism brought people here because of our agriculture. Now we can do this opposite way around, and we can have tourism still continue to strive and be strong, but our industry in hemp in every division will be able to get strong. Because hemp not only going to be able to clean out the dirt and contaminated soil, 1 acre only takes 3 months to crop. We can have 4 harvesting a year, 4. That industry can strive with building not only wood and lumber, but even with cement that doesn't give off heat and those gases that we don't like when we have a construction going on. And then we can be viable in our own state in not only, well, we always talk about product of Hawaii, but we can be strong enough that we can be able to use these products in our, our affordable homes, in our building out and everything that we need, and we can use them in here in Hawaii with our own products. So again, colleagues, I know this is a great bill, and I gladly have you guys support. But again, we need to, Senator Gabbard always said, let's get hemp.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator DeCoite.
Thank you, Mr. President. In opposition.
Please proceed.
In the present form, this bill will destroy our hemp industry. For the reasons what my colleague across the aisle has stated, this is why this bill has come to our attention, that it will not help the farmers that are producing hemp, because in its present form, the fact that the Department of Ag has not set the rules, the federal government have given them leeway to legalize what we could do with hemp and the production of hemp. It has allowed the industry to diversify ag. And if we want to talk about minimum wage and increase, this type of industry will provide the increase for agriculture and provide those high-end jobs. In its present form, this bill would put those hemp farmers out of business. But for the reasons that my colleague across the aisle has stated, this is the reason why we need to have this bill changed, and a floor amendment should have been put down today on both the House and Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2986 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 100-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2251, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Public Housing Authority.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Ocasio. Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2251 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 107-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2347, Conference Draft 1, relating to constitutional amendments.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Ocasio, Senator Moriwaki.
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2347, CD1, passes final reading.
On page 38, Conference Committee Report Number 108-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2162, Conference Draft 1, relating to ranked choice voting.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Favela. Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2162, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 127-22, final reading of House Bill 1432, Conference Draft 1, relating to concessions on public property.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? Senator Favela, any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1432, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 156-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2570, Conference Draft 1, relating to zero-emission vehicle fueling rebates.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2570, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 165-22, final reading of House Bill 1644, Conference Draft 1, relating to environmental protection.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations for Senator Favela. Any no votes? No vote for Senator Nishihara.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1644, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 166-22, final reading of House Bill 1640, Conference Draft 1, relating to recycling.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations for Senators Wakai. Oh, reservations again is Senators Inouye. Reservations, Senator Misalucha. Any no votes? Senator Wakai, Senator Inouye.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. HB 1640, CD1, passes final reading.
On page 39, Conference Committee Report Number 170-22, final reading of House Bill 2255, Conference Draft 1, relating to energy efficiency.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2255, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 171-22, final reading of House Bill 1801, Conference Draft 1, relating to energy efficiency.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservation, Senator Favela.
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 1801, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 176-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2923, Conference Draft 1, relating to fireworks.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? No vote for Senator Favela. Any other no votes?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2923, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 181-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2478, Conference Draft 1, relating to taxation.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations for Senator Ocasio, reservations for Senator Revere, any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2478, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 198-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2511, Conference Draft 1, relating to taxation.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes for Senator Ocasio.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2511, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 218-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2284, Conference Draft 1 relating to aquaculture.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? Reservation, Senator Ocasio.
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2284, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 40, Conference Committee Report Number 232-22, final reading of House Bill 2510, Conference Draft 1 relating to income.
Is there any discussion? Senator Taniguchi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of House
Please
Bill
proceed.
2510. Colleagues, this bill incrementally raises the minimum wage over the next few years from the current $10.10 per hour until it reaches $18 per hour in January 2028. This bill also includes provisions to make the state earned income tax credit fully refundable and permanent. With our state Senate advocating strongly for meaningful minimum wage increases over the past 4 years, I'm very pleased that this measure is finally poised for passage. A higher minimum wage is long overdue and will greatly assist working families and enhance the overall quality of life here in Hawaii. The addition of provisions to make the state earned income tax credit fully refundable and permanent is an added bonus to this bill and complements the minimum wage increase. The EITC is presently a non-refundable tax credit, which means that households can only use this tax credit to reduce their income tax liability. By making this credit refundable, this bill would enable Hawaii households with the lowest incomes and little or no tax liability to make full use of this tax credit. This measure is part of a package of bills over the last 2 years that helps both employers and employees. In 2021, we appropriated over $740 million to repay our federal unemployment insurance loans and alleviate a significant increase in the federal unemployment insurance tax for Hawaii's employers. This session, the legislature also passed a bill to statutorily adjust the unemployment experience rating, which will result in significant savings in unemployment insurance taxes for employers. House Bill 2510, Conference Draft 1, along with Senate Bill 3259, the Hawaii Saves Bill, make up a third component of this multifaceted approach aimed at assisting both employers and working families throughout the state of Hawaii. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting House Bill 2510, Conference Draft 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Senator Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the words of my colleague from Manoa be inserted into the journal as if they were my own. Thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion? Senator Keith Agaran.
Excuse me. Mr. President, in support, I wanted to commend the Labor Chair for the work he's done this year on this bill and on other measures. And I have some written remarks I'd like to submit into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? Senator Decoy.
Thank you, Mr. President. In support, and I wish that
Please proceed.
and I wish that the words of the chair from Labor is inserted into the journal, and I wish to insert comments in the journal also.
So ordered. Senator Ocasio.
In support, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
I would like to submit the written remarks of the Labor Chair as if they were my own, and also add additional comments.
So ordered. Further discussion? Senator Favela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong support.
Please proceed.
In 2020, when we had this about 2 years ago, we were going to pass this bill. Senator Taniguchi, the chair, I have a lot of respect for this man. He worked hard, tirelessly, trying to work with the House and continue to work on this bill to what we have today. He knows, because I shared this with him, and I totally support him, and I support this bill. I wasn't happy with some of the stuff that was happening on the bill. I wanted the $18 an hour come a little sooner. but we can't have everything. We got to compromise, and that's what I learned in here. That we got to also always have aloha for one another. But going forward and having a good quality of life, we need to continue to understand people that works every day on minimum wage, and especially the guys who work for waitresses and waiters who have tips, and then they gotta give $1.50 in 2028 out of their check and all those things. I mean, it's great, but if, like I said, I told him if I had my way, that wouldn't happen. Because we know in the visitor industry, not every visitor learns and know how to tip. And I'm not gonna say what nationality, but they don't tip. And it's sad because these guys work hard, and then the restaurants who hire them shouldn't even bother with minusing the $1.50 or anything to do with the tip penalties or whatever they want to call it. Because if you're the face of the company, that's your wait staff. So again, colleagues, again, thank you, Senator Taniguchi, working very hard on this, and I'm really proud to support this bill. Thank you, Senate President.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Riviere.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support with reservations.
Please proceed.
I am in full support of the earned income tax credit. I think that's well received and will have very positive effects for those who will benefit from it. My reservations are that I think we're still putting the hurt on small business. I am glad that we are raising the minimum wage. I have always said that I thought that it was too much, too fast. That has been my objection. This version does take a little bit longer to get there. So from the side of a small business, I think this is easy, somewhat easier for them. So my support is there. My reservations are that I hope that we can consider the impacts on the small businesses, and let's keep a keen eye on that over the next couple of years and make sure that we do what we can to support mom and pops and our local entrepreneurs. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion? Not, I would just like to express my Senator Nishihara.
Yeah, I
proceed.
stand in strong support of this bill, and I'd like to have the comments of the Senator from Manoa to be entered as my own. Thank you.
Thank you. Years from now, they're going to think we weren't very original. Everybody wrote the same speech. Further discussion? Not, I would also like to extend my thanks to the Labor Chair and the hard work he's put in over the last 4 years in finally getting here. And based on the minority leader's remarks, I would also like to extend my congratulations to him for leading a successful bipartisan effort in making this happen. If there's no further discussion, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations for Senators Senator Riviere, or Senator Wakai? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2510, CD1 passes final reading. Madam Clerk, did we confirm that the governor received the budget?
Yes, Mr. President.
Then let us proceed with the fiscal consent calendar.
Final reading of the fiscal consent calendar, beginning with Conference Committee Report number 6-22 on Senate Bill 2808, Conference Draft 1 on page 40, to Conference Committee Report number 250-22 on Senate Bill 2021, Conference Draft 1 on page 56.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Kanuha.
Mr. President, may I insert into the journal on various measures, written remarks?
So ordered. Any further discussion? Senator Keith Agaran
Same request as the senator from West Hawaii.
will enter his words as if they were your own. Further discussion? Senator Decoit.
Mr. President, same request.
So ordered. Further discussion? Senator Moriwaki. Would you turn your microphone on, please, and stand?
Are we on page 66? I have a reservation on Conference Report 235.
We are on the consent calendar for the fiscal bills.
Consent calendar? Oh, sorry.
Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent?
25 ayes.
Thank you. All bills on the fiscal consent calendar from SB 2808 Conference Draft 1 on page 40 to SB 2021 CD1 on page 56 pass final reading.
Final reading of the fiscal ordinary calendar beginning on page 56. Conference Committee Report number 31-22. Final reading of Senate Bill 2960 Conference Draft 1 relating to food safety.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2960 CD1 passes third reading.
On page 57.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, final reading.
On page 57, Conference Committee Report number 44-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3041, Conference Draft 1, making appropriations for claims against the state, its officers, or its employees.
Is there any discussion? Senator Keohokalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. In support.
Please proceed.
Mr. President and colleagues, this measure includes a $328 million appropriation to settle the Kalima case with approximately 2,300 Native Hawaiian claimants. I say 2,300, although there were initially 2,700 claimants who joined the suit 23 years ago. And that's because 400 of them have passed on since this suit began. And although their families may receive something, they will see no redress. And although we all know what this suit is about, I do think it is important in this historic moment, in this historic year, to make it clear why we are here. And that's because when the federal government passed the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act in 1920, it did virtually nothing to implement it for the next 40 years. And instead, diluted the trust of much of its best lands with the help and in concert with the territorial government and counties. Then, in order to be admitted into the Union in 1959, the state promised to take on the responsibility of administering the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. And that's because the federal government, recognizing their own inaction, basically said, people of Hawaii, if you'd like to become a state, take on Hawaiian homelands and you're in. And in 1959, we agreed. And for the next 30 years, the state of Hawaii did almost nothing to make good on that promise. That changed in the 90s when Governor Waihe'e and this legislature finally committed significant resources for development and set up a process for Hawaiians on the wait list to file claims to obtain redress for those 70 years of broken promises. And what of that process? Well, beneficiaries were asked to make claims, and then again, nothing happened. Think of how frustrating it is to be promised something, then be told, we broke the promise, so here's a process we'll set up to make you whole, and then later be told, never mind, we changed our minds and we're not going to do anything to make this right. So these Hawaiians finally sued under what we now know as the Kalima case. And the majority of the case has been not about whether the state is liable, it's been about how much the state is liable for. And with today's $328 million settlement, we now know. And I hope that today's action can bring this issue to a close for the claimants who are still with us today. For each one, this is a monumental opportunity to provide a better future for themselves and their families, which was the aim of Prince Kuhio 102 years ago. It is time. And I have to say I'm proud that as stewards of the public trust, this year, we in the legislature can finally put this case behind us. And that with the combined actions that we are taking for the Hawaiian community, send a clear message that we intend to make good on our commitments and that we will no longer sweep the lingering issues of the past under the rug, but will instead engage and proactively work to solve problems and move forward in the best interest of our entire community. And so I'm grateful to you, my colleagues, and our friends from the House for finally making good on this promise. In this year, where so much has been accomplished for the benefit of the Hawaiian community. And I'd like to take this moment to say special thanks to the Attorney General's Office, Holly Shikata and Craig Iha, to the Speaker of the House, and to our WAM Chair for their individual hard work on making this historic action possible. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Kanuha.
In support.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, may I have the words of the previous speaker entered into the journal as if it were my own?
So ordered. Senator Inoue.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask that the previous speaker's comments, I'd like that comments, the remarks to be entered into the journal, please. Mahalo.
On your behalf, so ordered, Senator DeCoite.
Thank you, Mr. President. Likewise, I would like the words of the speaker from Kaneohe to be inserted to the journal as if they were my own. And I would like to add additional comments to the journal.
So ordered.
And at the appropriate time, if I could do a late introduction.
Do we have any other discussion? Senator Keith Agaran.
I also have some additional remarks I'd like to submit into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion.
Senator President, standing in strong support. I also want to insert comments to the journal, and one thing that I learned here really good is I cannot have my colleague from Kaneohe's comments inserted in the journal as my own.
So ordered. Thank you, Senator Lee.
Thank you. I'd also ask to insert written comments into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 3041, CD1 passes final reading. Before going to the next item, we'll recognize Senator DeCoite for a late introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce Chairwoman Hulu Lindsay, who's up in the galley from OHA. Please stand. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Please proceed, Madam Clerk. Oh,
I'm sorry. And I'd also like to introduce Sylvia Hussey, who is also with her. Welcome.
Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Conference Committee Report number 69-22, final reading of House Bill 1837, Conference Draft 1 relating to housing.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 1837, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 124-22, final reading of House Bill 2171, Conference Draft 1 relating to public safety.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, Senator President.
Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senator President. I rise in support of this Conference Committee report. Colleagues, I support the consolidation of the state criminal law enforcement investigation functioning underneath the State Department. As a new Department of Law Enforcement, long overdue, and should have been consolidated long ago. When I first got here, colleagues, I wanted to have the sheriffs patrol all the state highways instead of being at the airport and in the courts. That was my way of trying to find another way for sheriffs to assist and work with HPD. So it's not replacing and it's not assisting, it's working with HPD. I want to get that straight because some of my colleagues, my constituents thinking that we're trying to replace HPD, and we're not. They do a great job. But for now, this measure is well important for public safety to streamline communication and reducing duplication and cost and operations under the uniform standard of law enforcement services. I would like to thank my House colleagues and the Senate colleagues, and especially Chair of Public Safety, Senator Clarence Nishihara. I would just want to thank Attorney General Holly and and the head of sheriffs, Billy Oku, for working on this and trying to just let me know how this thing was going, because I was just really glad that we was trying to do something different. And just right now, we know HPD is short and we're just having a hard time. Everything we want to burden and blame HPD for a lot of stuff that is not happening. But if we can work together as law enforcement agencies, we can do a great job going forward. So I advise my colleagues if we can work together and support this bill. Thank you. Thank you, Senate President.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Nishihara,
I stand in strong support of this bill since we helped work on it.
please proceed.
You know, I'd like to thank the WAM chair for helping to move this bill along as well. And with the support of Director of Public Safety and his agreement that we would not try to get everything into the bill, but at least get the department set up, which is important to get the rest of it going. The other parts of the bill, I think next year they can probably get the bulk of it done, but I think it's a good first step in finally looking at public safety and splitting it into two parts, where there's corrections and law enforcement. I think it'll do a lot of good going forward. I think it'll improve morale as it moves forward for the members in public safety as a whole. So I might have some additional comments I'd like to put into the journal as well. Thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations for Senator Ocasio. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2171 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 138-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2510, Conference Draft 1, relating to renewable energy.
Is there any discussion? Senator Ocasio,
Mr. President, I stand in opposition.
please proceed.
I would like to request to put comments in the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion, Senator De La Cruz,
Thank you, Mr. President, in support.
please proceed.
In 1991, the state created the first and only energy functional plan. At the time, it was needed to transform to renewable energy, not to save the planet, but to save Hawaii from the handcuff of imported oil. When there was a nascent utility-scale renewable technologies like solar, our residents are still afflicted by the dependence on fossil fuel with rising electricity and gas rates. HICO predicts 20% increase in costs. KIUC 0% increase due to the plans they implemented over the last few years. The International Energy Agency, EIA, predicts continued rise in the cost of oil, double from a year ago. In 2015, the legislature chose to impose a mandate of 100% renewable portfolio standards on electric utilities. There was no study, there was no plan. Yet at the same time, it was visionary, and it brought new investments, jobs, and clean, green energy to reduce emissions. Unfortunately, there was a loophole that still allowed fossil fuel to be burned. On New Year's Eve, Oahu faced an energy shortfall, with the utility calling for conservation of energy, the only measure they could implement to prevent the island from a blackout. On September 1st, 20% of our firm, lowest price reliable energy will be shuttered, and dozens of promising intermittent renewable energy projects promised to replace it on Oahu and other islands have filed notices of force majeure and unknown installation dates. Just yesterday, HICO and the PUC issued a joint letter to Mayor Victorino informing him that two of HICO's largest firm fossil fuel generators will be forced into retirement in just a few years, with no replacement of generation in sight. Some will say you can smart grid your way to reliability. While a smart grid is important, it is merely a way for the utility to communicate with its generators and consumers, especially the customer-owned intermittent rooftop solar generators. It will help to shore up system reliability, but a reliable grid is still dependent on a firm energy source to always be able to provide that reserve energy capacity when needed. We are faced with an energy crisis, one that is negatively affecting our residents' pocketbooks and potentially affecting our ability to receive safe and reliable energy. This measure is a planning and policy measure that is commencement of an updated energy plan to proactively avoid the crisis we are facing at this moment. We should have done this at least in 2015 when we passed the 100% RPS law. This measure is not a mandate to the PUC, it is a policy and planning document. It states goals: no more fossil fuels past 2045, and to close any further loopholes. A reliable grid needs a diversification of renewable energy in both firm, which is always available, and intermittent, which is weather-dependent technology. That in order to truly displace fossil fuels, we need at least 1/3 of our renewable generation to come from a reliable firm generation. This percentage was based on the KIUC vision of their grid in 2025 to replace fossil fuels. This percentage is based on the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which states that an energy reserve margin of reliable energy capacity is necessary to keep the lights on. This independent body analyzes and disseminates impartial energy information to promote sound policy making for energy. HECO's annual report, filed every year, state that a 30% energy reserve margin of energy capacity is needed on each island to provide reasonable reliability reserve and actually measure itself on a pass-fail basis to this target in their adequacy of supply report. And we cannot be overly dependent on one source of any technology, whether it be fossil fuel, firm renewables, or intermittent renewables. So this bill sets a limit on the percentage of any one technology, with the exception of geothermal. But as we have seen with the closure of the coal plant, we need to stay flexible in our policy making. So this bill will allows for future changes in those policy goals, to allow for the legislature to make these goals through the adoption of a concurrent resolution or any disputes by agencies to be appealed to the governor. SB 2510 is a measure to support if you want to reduce carbon emissions, make the state more energy independent, spur jobs and economic growth, keep the lights on, and eliminate fossil fuels. Some would say that the bill restricts competition. No, the bill encourages more types of technologies to be considered, including firm and intermittent, on all islands, instead of the trajectory of only intermittent. Some would say it would hamper clean energy progress and is difficult to implement. The Kauai plan is 22% solar and 11% biomass and 37% hydroelectric, which runs 24/7. And only 10% fossil fuel. Firm renewables is more reliable than intermittent. They state Texas grid outage was due to firm being down, but intermittent wind was also down, and they didn't have enough reserve margin on the grid. Some will say that the bill will increase volatility and costs. Kauai predicts no cost increase. This bill is about getting rid of fossil fuel, which has volatility and costs. Again, the HECO reserve margin of 30% of a reliable grid substantiates the need for firm renewables. Otherwise, we will keep fossil fuel instead. When people ask again about why do we need these percentages, House Bill 1800, which we just amended today on the floor, has 50% reduction in carbon from 2005 levels for all industries with no warning to any industry, not just the electrical industry. It establishes a goal for statewide greenhouse gas emissions limit to be at least 50% below 2005 levels by 2030, and at the same time as the HSEO do a study to analyze pathways to develop recommendations on achieving goals for 350,000 for the study. That's the same thing with SB 2510. Set the goal while continuing to study how we can achieve them. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Wakai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask that the previous speaker's words be entered into the journal as my own.
So ordered.
And also make a few other comments.
Please proceed. This is in support.
In support, excuse me. Members, we're on a short timeline to get renewable energy on the grid due to lawmakers in 2022 mandating a shutdown of the coal plant. We did so because of assurances by advocates that it was feasible to do so by this time. Lawmakers were sold on a bold idea to have Hawaii be the first state in America to ban burning by coal. Press releases went out to pat ourselves on the back. Now, 2 years later, we see the folly of creating policy based on press release. It became apparent a year ago that we didn't have enough renewable projects lined up to fill that 20% gap that the coal plant fills. The fallback plan a year ago was to burn oil and then power them in batteries. When the supply chain took away the batteries, we had a huge problem. Now the PUC is suggesting that we use diesel generators to prepare for this lack of capacity. Yes, that's right. We're preparing to burn more oil, and ratepayers are going to foot the bill for this lack of foresight. The coal plant is still burning, yet we already have threats of blackouts. All of us recall on New Year's Eve, ECO asked us to conserve power. SB 2510 gets us to a better place, steps that should have been taken years ago. There is so much on our legislative docket. So much of our renewable energy future depends upon NIMBYs and other obstructionists hijacking our progress. Residents don't want wind in Kahuku, they don't want PV in Nanakuli, they don't want offshore wind, they don't want biomass. When it comes to energy, the public is really good at defining what it doesn't want. What we need to start defining is what we want. As the state chases its 100% RPS, we cannot leave the public facing potential blackouts. Lawmakers, through this bill, 2510, are helping to set the reset button this year. To be effective in accomplishing Hawaii's laudable achievements, we need to plan to identify what specific time-bound steps need to happen and ensure we find the balance between intermittent and firm renewable projects. Policy by press release is in our rearview mirror. The road ahead has to be paved with good legislation, as you see in 2510. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Favela.
Mr. President, I'm raising reservation on this bill.
Please proceed.
The reason why I'm raising reservation on this bill, yes, we know we need to have renewable energy. We got to get off of fossil fuel. But there is a need and a want. But to what extent? We need to be smarter. We need to do better. And we need to do research better. Because we can stop and have all the fossil fuel eliminated, have this whole island with windmills, but to what cost to the environment? We can have these platforms huge in our water, but to what to the environment? So we're gonna have windmills and energy, no human beings, no wildlife, nothing to eat. So we need to be smart. There is technology out there, other countries are using it, but we're not. So we can do better. And like I said, I am for getting off of fossil fuel, but to what extent? Thank you, Senate President.
Thank you. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? No vote for Senator Ocasio, no vote for Senator Riviere, Senator Ihara, Senator Gabbard. Reservations for Senator Favela. Senator Rhodes, do you want to cast a no vote? Again, the no vote is Senator Riviere, Senator Ihara, Senator Rhodes, Senator Gabbard, Senator Ocasio. Did I miss any no vote? Reservations for Senator Favela.
20 ayes, 5 noes.
Thank you. SB 2510, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 155-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3229, Conference Draft 1, relating to geothermal royalties.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Ocasio. Any reservations?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 3229, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 58, Conference Committee Report Number 159-22, final reading of House Bill 2336, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Photo Red Light Imaging Detector Systems Program.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations? For Senator Kim, no vote. Senator Revere, Senator Favela, Senator Ocasio.
22 ayes, 3 noes.
Thank you. HB 2336, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 183-22, final reading of House Bill 1517, Conference Draft 1, relating to coffee.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Oh, Senator Kanuha.
In support.
Please proceed.
May I enter written remarks into the journal?
So ordered. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no vote?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 1517, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 186-22, final reading of House Bill 2000, Conference Draft 1, relating to education.
Is there any discussion?
Mr.
Senator Keith
President,
Agra.
in support, I have some written remarks I'd like to enter into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent?
25 ayes.
Oh, wait, sorry. Reservations? Senator Ocasio. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2000 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 188-22, final reading of Senate Bill 1137, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Spouse and Child Abuse Special Fund.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 1137 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 193-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3040, Conference Draft 1, relating to procurement.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 3040 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 199-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3195, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Ocasio. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 3195 CD1 passes final reading.
Page 59, Conference Committee Report Number 216-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2070, Conference Draft 1, relating to special purpose revenue bonds to assist the Hawaiian Legacy Reforestation Initiative to restore Hawaii's forests and natural resources.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? No, reservations for Senator San Buenaventura, Senator Kim. Any no votes? No vote for Senator Ocasio, Senator Favela.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 2070 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 229-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2473, Conference Draft 1, relating to economic development.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Ocasio. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2473 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 230-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3334, Conference Draft 1, relating to government operations.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations? No vote for Senator Ocasio.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 3334 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 234-22, final reading of House Bill 2024, Conference Draft 1, relating to Mauna Kea.
Is there any discussion? Senator Kim.
Mr. President, I rise in support of
Please
House Bill
proceed.
2024. Mr. President, neutral stewardship, great buzzwords, but what does it mean? So I looked it up. Mutual is defined as a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding. Stewardship is defined as the job of supervising or taking care of something, such as an organization or property. Mutual stewardship, therefore, is a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding for the responsible stewardship of our public lands. Easier said than done. Mr. President, it appeared unlikely that this mutual stewardship concept would work when I was tasked with this bill over 7 weeks ago. The opponents and proponents on governance of Mauna Kea and the future of astronomy were just too far apart. I was told we should just kill the bill because it was just too polarized. And so I challenged myself, and instead of asking how can, no can, I asked, why can't we? Why can't we respect the culture and the Aina and still have a world-class astronomy program at the University of Hawaii? I was surprised that the brilliant minds at the university and the leadership did not read the tea leaves and put together a working group prior to this to avoid what we, the legislature, have to do. I began with the belief that we can. See, I learned my Hawaiian values and love of Hawaiian storytelling from my kumu auntie Maiki Ayu. She instilled in me the need to perpetuate and respect our host culture. In fact, on opening day, 39 years ago, she visited me and reminded me of the responsibility to perpetuate the values she taught. But I also believe in the science of astronomy. So did our Hawaiian ancestors, who were keen observers of the world around them and applied the skill to the sky as well as to the earth. They developed systems for agriculture and navigation which used the motions of the celestial bodies as a calendar and map. Like many peoples around the world, from ancient times, Polynesians have been guided by the stars. The constellations move in predictable rhythms across the sky with mathematical precisions unchanging over the course of many human lifespans. Mr. President, the conference committee chose to work mutually toward mutual stewardship, recognizing that the status quo would ultimately create a greater divide. CD1 incorporates most of our changes in our Senate Draft 1 and in Senate Draft 2. Most importantly, we retain the declaration that astronomy is a policy of the state and confirm that with language that states the authority shall develop, negotiate, execute agreements that promote astronomy. This includes education, training, employment, and professional development opportunities for state residents. It goes even further to include $350,000 to UH Hilo Imiloa Center for K-12 public education programs in astronomy-related fields of learning. It also states it shall include observing time of not less than 7%, with the university giving priority of the observing time to Hawaii students. All of this would be done by the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority, an 11-member authority. It gives University of Hawaii Board of Regents a seat on the authority. It gives the observatories a seat. It gives 2 Native Hawaiians of traditional and customary practices seats. The mayor of the Hawaiian Island a seat plus 6 others. It requires that at least 3 members must be residents of the County of Hawaii. The authority must establish offices at UH Hilo or elsewhere in Hawaii Island. It provides a framework for astronomy-related development on Mauna Kea to include a set of principles for returning the lands used for astronomy research to their natural state whenever observatories are decommissioned or no longer have research or educational value. These are just some of the highlights of this 50-page bill. Mr. President, know that all comments and emails submitted were read, and I tried to incorporate or address them into the drafts. I believe this mutual stewardship can and will work. Of course, it will depend on the human aspect of mutual respect and rest with the authority members, which is why we spent so much time on its makeup. The Senate will be tasked with confirming the members in the near future, and it will be our responsibility to confirm the inaugural set of members on the authority to provide this mutual and balanced governance. Mr. President, I'm proud to say that the House and Senate conferees managed to craft this bill with mutual understanding and respect for both sides of the issue, and did so with no drama. I thank the members of the Conference Committee in the House and the Senate, the staff, and all those who assisted in the process. It was the work of many hands. I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Inouye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak in opposition
Please proceed.
to House Bill 2024 Conference Draft Number 1. There are many things that are still wrong with this bill. However, in the interest of time, I will only mention a few. The objective of this bill is to create the new Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority with the responsibility to govern and manage the entire mountain, including astronomy at its summit. The creation of a new authority to assume jurisdiction over Mauna Kea is redundant. The current management and stewardship of Mauna Kea is already set in place through the University of Hawaii and the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship. People I talk to at the University of Hawaii tell me there are problems with the 5-year transitional timeline, which forces UH to turn over the management of Mauna Kea to the new authority. With this, it comes complications, such as having the university legally required to comply with all obligations of the current lease and not being able to do anything else while serving as a lame duck landlord. UH is concerned with upcoming lease renegotiations in 2034 after the current lease runs out. They are rightfully worried about the future of astronomy and the fate of its sublease partners, which consists of all the observatories presently on the summit, including the future of the proposed and approved 30-meter telescope. What is to become of them? Doug Simmons, the current director of astronomy, tells me that HB 2024 CD1 would impact the TMT project's vested rights in terms of its land authorization and permit. The current 30-meter telescope sublease issued by UH guarantees site control for TMT through 2033 and commits UH to use its best efforts to secure a new general lease so that a new sublease can be issued. Pursuant to the bill, UH will no longer be involved and the authority would issue a new lease to TMT no sooner than July 1st, 2028, if it decides to do so. That would require the authority to organize itself, create rules and processes, negotiate lease terms, and resolve any legal challenges. Similarly, the current CDUP for the project issued to UH would have to be replaced by a new permit or permits from the authority following the establishment of rules and processes and the resolution of any contested cases and judicial appeals. As one writer in a recent Hawaii Tribune Herald letter stated, I'm writing to express my horror and amazement that the Trojan horse bill known as House Bill 2024 is under serious consideration for passage. Mr. President, colleagues, this bill is a Trojan horse indeed. After UH loses their original lease in 2033, upon which TMT and the other observatories are subleases, astronomy will be back at square one, starting all over again. The costly setback for astronomy, Hawaii's economy and jobs related to the industry, will probably be too much to bear. It's sad to say the loss and the hard work of the late Board of Regent Barry Taniguchi and the late Dr. Don Hall, one of the first directors of astronomy, whom I have worked with as a council member on my island in the 80s. There is no assurance that the new Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority will guarantee that TMT, the University of Hawaii, and other observatories will get new long-term leases. There will be too much politics involved in the new approval process. At that point, or maybe even earlier, TMT will likely give up and move away from Hawaii. This bill will be the demise of a promising new world-class telescope that will complement the world-class observatories we already have. The casualty list will be long. The demise of our $221 million a year astronomy industry. Astronomy itself brings in at least $110 million annually to our state, $68 million in labor income, and $10 million in state tax revenues, according to a report today in the Honolulu Advertiser by one of Hawaii's most brilliant tech journalists. The dissemination of astronomy will contribute to the loss of many jobs, not only in astronomy, but also in education, high-tech, industry, and many support services, some of them small businesses, and the economic benefits to my island and the state. The demise of astronomy will also mean lost opportunities for future and the spillover effects astronomy brings to our fragile economy. Knowledge, expertise, and technology benefits. The ramifications of this bad bill will resonate throughout the worldwide astronomy, business, and scientific communities, even though the bill does declare support for astronomy to be a policy of the state. How much of a commitment to astronomy do we truly have? The new authority will have to give equal or maybe even greater weight to the ecology and environment of the mountain, its natural resources, restricted access, human activities, traditional cultural practices, and more. DLNR brought up several concerns, including unclear oversight legal framework, unclear financial stability, and redundant managerial planning that are part of the bill's flaws. The restrictions on astronomy and the associated leases are a problem as well as limitations on commercial use. And I totally agree as the chair of Water and Land Committee. In the end, the DLNR believes that Mauna Kea lands should remain protected under the present Conservation District rules under the oversight of the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Mr. President, these are just some of the major concerns I have about HB 2024 CD1. Surely there are many more issues surrounding this bill, including the fact that we have to appropriate more than $14 million for the creation of a new authority, micromanage observatory viewing time, among numerous legal concerns brought up by the Attorney General's office, the potential political process in the nomination to board appointees, and much more. I might ask you, is Hawaii as committed to astronomy as this bill will like you to believe? We must not let our highly respected, world-class astronomy industry wither and die due to short-sighted legislation such as this. Astronomy's contribution has remained steady in Hawaii over the past decade. It is a reliable economic generator for Hawaii, especially when compared to weather and pest-prone agriculture and pandemic-afflicted price-sensitive tourism. The stars and mostly good weather are always here, and astronomy can be here to support us in Hawaii for generations to come. Colleagues, it's time for us to make a statement and stand up for astronomy and not allow HB 2024 as CD1 to pass. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Keith Aviran.
In support, I have some written remarks I'd like to submit into the record.
So ordered. Further discussion. Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senate President. I rise in strong support.
Please proceed.
Colleagues, if we could, Mauna and I, we support this measure. But if we had our way, we would remove every single telescope on that mountain. but it's not our choice and it's not the way we're going to do it. We need astronomy in Hawaii. A lot of my colleagues is misrepresentation of this bill, thinking that we're trying to do away with astronomy. 50 years of desecration under the management we have, contamination to our water sources, spills, oil spills, hydraulic spills, you name them, it was reported by Carol Cox, many of times. But what I'm saying to Mauna Kea, for us, people of Hawaii, is sacred, spiritual place, reflecting of who we are and define our unique culture and inheritance. Colleagues, the reason why this bill is so complex, we're not going to agree on everything. My colleagues in the House, colleagues in the Senate, and I want to thank Senator Kim for through the whole bill, Senate President and colleagues, we talked over and over. It's not what a lot of people wanted on the bill, but we talk about education. 50 years of this telescope being on there, education was never a priority until we wanted to shut down the Mauna. Until we had the defenders out there defending the mountain, all of a sudden, this is a great opportunity for young astronomers to get their education. Not even. Zero. Because why? University of Hawaii and the astronomy program is obsolete. So again, with this bill, some of the old telescopes up there, this can be used, and if not, they're going to decommission them, that can be used for educational process. What I like about this, it's going to insist that with the working group had put in together, and of course, I cannot forget to thank the working group for putting this together. So having the stewardship on Mauna Kea, why is it so important? Because they're going to ensure that these things are processed and done. Because we had 50 years of lip service. Yes, they bring a lot of money. But how much of our kids here, all of you raise your hands, that went up there, had a great time camping, staying up there, having a good time in the observatory? Nobody that I know. Nobody that I know on Hilo. So this is going to prioritize and change the dynamics of the University of Hawaii's mismanaging of that mountain for decades. Okay? And if you want to talk politics, that's how they got the mountain, because it was a political move. So now that we have something that is workable, people saying that this is not good. Yeah, not in every level, not what I want, not what my family want. If, like I said, we could have our way, the mountain would go back to its natural resource. But astronomy is thriving in Hawaii, and it's a very vital importance for our kids to learn that, so they can stay here at home, go to school, have a great job, and start prioritizing astronomy for our keiki and not foreigners. When they talk about jobs, none of my family members in Hilo had any jobs up there in constructing the thing. It was Canadians. So we got to be a fact here when we talk about jobs and sustainability for Hawaiians, sustainability. Yes, astronomy is key. And I support Senator Kim and my colleagues in the House and the Senate on this bill. But yes, we have a lot of work to do on this bill, but it's a work in progress, and the working group did a great job in organizing this whole situation. So again, colleagues, Senate President, I will end with that. But like I said, astronomy can strive only when the people of Hawaii is totally involved, not left out. Thank you, Senate President.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Riviere,
Thank you, Mr. President. In support,
please proceed.
I just want to thank the Chair of Higher Ed for pulling together all the parties to work for a compromise solution. This is a really complicated issue. It's very emotional on all sides. And I just think the chair should be acknowledged for the great work she did in finding a way forward that I believe this mustn't necessarily be the end, but I think it's a step forward towards reconciling all of the complexities of this question. So thank you. In support.
Thank you. I will join you in expressing my thanks to the Higher Ed Chair as well. Further discussion. Senator Favela.
Sorry, colleagues, a little bit emotional, so I didn't get to do this. I want to insert into the journal my colleague, Senator Donna Mikado Kim's comments into the journal as my own, because I could not articulate it as good as she did, but I love her for that, and it was a good job, so can I insert those comments into the journal?
So ordered. Further discussion, Senator Kim,
Mr. President, I rise in support.
please proceed.
And I want to make remarks on the oppositions that was stated. I want this body to know that we met with the UH president, and he did not oppose this current draft. To my knowledge, I have not received any opposition from the University of Hawaii. Also, we addressed the remarks or the written comments from the Attorney General, from DLNR. Also, that the observatories, we received written support of this draft, except for the University of Hawaii's observatories. All the other observatories did, in fact, write, not all of them, majority of them wrote in support. In fact, I heard verbally and in letter from the TMT that said that if we didn't do this mutual stewardship, that eventually they would leave Hawaii because they do not want to be in conflict with the indigenous people. They do not want to be in conflict with the community, and that eventually it's not this bill that would kill astronomy, but it's status quo. And so I just would like my colleagues to know that all effort was placed into this for a balanced approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Ocasio?
Mr. President, I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
Colleagues, if we consider the incredible complexities, the incredible complexities in the history of Mauna Kea, and the complexities in the perspectives of our diverse community, we will understand that there is a multitude of layers to this decision before us, both seen and unseen. My decision today to vote in opposition is not simple. It is based on due diligence, lots of research, hours of discussion with many community members, community stakeholders, and right holders. It is based on trust in the process and also in my intuition. I would like to continue in this discussion to acknowledge the diplomacy of those in the working group and the willingness to step forward and come to the table, to take cracks from community members and friends and family, again, because of those deep complexities and layers. I would like to acknowledge the Chair of Higher Education, because she sets an example as well in this same diplomacy, not fear-based politics. And she is an example in her deliberations around this in terms of reading the testimony, doing the research, reaching out, being open. She's an excellent example of leadership. Within this context, it's also very important to acknowledge all of the efforts put towards mutual understanding, relationship building, consensus making, as this is a huge and historical gains in this civic discourse. There's a lot of healing and exposure around this extremely important topic by all sides and all involved. So again, mahalo to the working group For their hours of meeting, time spent in research, deliberations, in the community, their work is invaluable. While I truly believe that the process that has brought this bill to us today to decide on is valuable and has huge implications for healing and shifting our state policy and issues surrounding land management into the future and in a direction that considers both the needs of the stakeholders and right holders in our entire community. I do maintain a vote in opposition to the measure before me. I will be honest with this body. There are so many layers to this decision. I will be honest with my colleagues, with my constituents, with the people of Hawaii. I am Kanalua on this measure before us. It's not as simple as a yes or a no. And yet reservations does not begin to clarify the complexities into a single vote. I am confident that both chambers will pass this measure. And I am hopeful and confident that the continued process of this same civic discourse and future management will continue, and we can implement the concerns of all stake and right holders for the future of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Keoho Kalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just briefly like to comment in support.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, if this bill is a Trojan horse, then I'm afraid to report that Troy is already on fire. Doing nothing commits us to the status quo, which is an inevitable conflict that continues to hang over the Mauna. And status quo right now has the TMT and the future of astronomy in Hawaii on life support. I cannot promise that this bill fixes the conflict, but I can tell you that doing nothing right now fixes nothing. So I ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Now, do we have unanimous consent? I have a no vote for Senator Inoue, a no vote for Senator Ocasio. Any other no votes? Senator Rhodes, any reservations? Reservations for Senator San Buenaventura Taniguchi. Baker.
22 ayes, 3 noes.
Thank you. HB 2024 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 235-22, final reading of House Bill 2260, Conference Draft 1 relating to cannabis.
Is there any discussion? Do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? Reservations for Senator Ocasio? No vote for Senator San Buenaventura. Well, sorry. So reservations for Senators Ocasio, San Buenaventura, and Morawaki.
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2260 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 60, Conference Committee Report number 249-22, final reading of Senate Bill 3289, Conference Draft 1, relating to Hawaii retirement savings.
Is there any discussion? Senator Taniguchi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Senate Bill 3289, Conference Draft 1.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Fellow Senators, this Senate bill establishes a state-facilitated payroll deduction retirement savings plan. The plan will be available for private sector employees in Hawaii who do not have access to employer-sponsored retirement plans. Nearly 2 out of 3 Hawaii employers do not provide retirement plans for their workers. This measure will affect more than 200,000 Hawaii workers who are currently without an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Hawaii residents with insufficient retirement savings are projected to cost state taxpayers between $1 billion to $2 billion during the next 15 years. The Senate version of this measure called for an automatic enrollment or opt-out of all workers. Low-income and younger workers are 3 times more likely to participate in an employer's retirement plan if it has an automatic enrollment feature. Automatic enrollment is recognized to be the best practice for maximizing employee participation. While we are disappointed that the Senate's automatic enrollment feature is not included in Conference Draft 1, I'm pleased that the House Finance Chair has been able to include an incentive for workers to enroll in the plan. Although the conference draft requires employees to opt in or elect to participate in the retirement plan, it provides up to $500 in matching funds to the first 50,000 covered workers who participate in the program for 12 consecutive months after initial enrollment. Colleagues, this retirement savings program is a visionary approach to helping Hawaii's residents plan for retirement. This is a long-term project that will benefit working families as they experience compounded savings growth over the next 15 to 20 years. The program will need to be tweaked in the years to come, but the program's basic structure will be in place, and it will provide retirement security for a large majority of Hawaii's workers. I urge you all to vote in support of Senate Bill 3289, Conference Draft 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 32.
Mr. President.
Senator
Point
Moriwaki.
of personal privilege. I'd like to introduce Kelly.
Can you allow me to register
Late
the vote
introduction.
first? Please?
Excuse me?
Could you allow me to record the vote, please, first, before you acknowledge the guests who are going to be thrilled by the announcement? Senate Bill 3289, Conference Draft 1, passes final reading. Senator Moriwaki, yes, you will be permitted a late introduction. Proceed. We voted,
Okay,
we
yes, okay.
acknowledged the bill
I'll
passed. Now you can
introduce
introduce them.
Kelly Lopez, State Director for AARP, who did a lot of heavy lifting and working with Senator Taniguchi, and also Audrey Suganuma, and I see Craig Gima from AARP. Mahalo.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Conference Committee Report number 251-22, final reading of Senate Bill 2474, Conference Draft 1, relating to renewable energy.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2474 passes final, Conference Draft 1 passes final reading.
On page 60, miscellaneous communication numbers 1 and 2 transmit legislative communications from the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, extending the 2022 Conference Committee negotiation deadline and Conference Committee report and Conference draft filing deadlines.
File.
Beginning on page 61, miscellaneous business, reconsideration of disagreement to House amendments and motions to agree. Senate Bill 3072, House Draft 1, and Senate Bill 3338, House Draft 1.
Senator Taniguchi.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to Senate Bill 3072, Senate Draft 2, and Senate Bill 3338, Senate Draft 2, and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Senator Taniguchi?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 3072 exempts the Hawaii Employer Union Health Benefits Trust Fund from being required to disclose certain alternative investment fund information. The House draft maintained the Senate position and was in final form upon return to the Senate, and it can be agreed to. Senate Bill 3338 appropriates $5 million in general funds for the design, planning, and construction of the Kalapapa Memorial to be expended by the Department of Health. The HD1 was in final form and can be agreed to.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 3072 HD1 and SB number 3338 HD1.
Mr. President, I'm in receipt of the record of votes for Senate Bill 2782, House Draft 1, and Senate Bill 2790, House Draft 1. A quorum was present, and a majority of the managers voted to recommend that the Senate agree to the House amendments.
The clerk is directed to file said record of votes and place the same in a journal. Senator Taniguchi.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to Senate Bills 2782, Senate Draft 1, and 2790, Senate Draft 1, and agree to the said amendments.
Senator Decoy.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Senator Taniguchi?
Mr. President, Senate Bill 2782 appropriates funds for collective bargaining cost items for members of Bargaining Unit 1, and Senate Bill 2790 appropriates funds for collective bargaining cost items for Bargaining Unit 9. Both HD1s were in final form upon return to the Senate and may be agreed to.
Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 2782 HD1 and SB number 2790 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 61, House Draft 1, and Senate Concurrent Resolution number 120, House Draft 1.
Senator Baker.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR 61 SD1 and Senate Concurrent Resolution 120 SD1 and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoy.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Senator Baker?
Thank you, Mr. President. SCR 61 requests the auditor to assess the social and financial effects of mandating health insurance coverage for hearing aids. This kind of study needs to be done before next year's legislature can consider whether to mandate so that more folks will have access to hearing aids. We know that we have an aging population, and if one can't hear, one really cannot be engaged and involved in a community. So I think this measure is very important for that regard. Next year's legislature will have the benefit of an auditor study and be able to move in addressing this problem if they so wish. The second SCR 120 urges the Public Utilities Commission to consider and adopt an efficient, streamlined process to review requests made by the electric utilities to provide middle-mile broadband services in furtherance of the state's effort to expedite broadband access and equity, facilitate digital equity, and promote expeditious broadband deployment to underserved and unserved areas. Mr. President, this is so important if we are going to be able to make sure that everyone in Hawaii has access to these important services. By providing this resolution and adopting it now, it gives direction to the PUC, who can undertake these activities when we are not in session, and provide us with the information necessary to make decisions on ensuring that we have adequate universal digital access. So I ask my colleagues to vote in support of these measures. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 61 HD1 and SCR 120 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution numbers 34, House Draft 1, 63, House Draft 1, 216, House Draft 1, and 217, House Draft 1.
Senator Kidani.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to Senate concurrent resolutions 34 SD1, 63 SD1, 216, and 217 SD1, and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoy.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Senator Kidani?
Mahalo, Mr. President. Senate concurrent resolutions 34 asks the Early Learning Board to report back to the legislature on their strategic plans and board composition. The amendments made by the House were technical and non-substantive. As we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX, Senate Concurrent Resolution 63 urges the DOE to name the new Kihei High School after Congresswoman Patsy T. Mink, the author of Title IX. The amendments made by the House were technical and non-substantive. Senate Concurrent Resolution 217 asks the Early Learning Board to prepare a roadmap on meeting the early learning goals as prescribed under Act 46, Session Laws 2020. The amendments made by the House were technical and non-substantive. SCR 216, this resolution asks the DOE to work with advocates on what components of Aaron's Law are already being done by the DOE and what work remains to be done. It also asks that the Department of Education provide draft legislation for the legislature's consideration as a result of this work. Mahalo.
Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 34 HD1, SCR 63 HD1, SCR 216 HD1, and SCR 217 HD1.
Mr. President,
Senator Rhodes?
could we take a short recess?
No objection. Will the Senate please come back into order, Madam Clerk?
We are on page 63, Senate Concurrent Resolution number 41, House Draft 1, and 108, House Draft 1.
Senator Moriwaki.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR number 41, Senate Draft 1, and SCR number 108, Senate Draft 1, and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoy.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Senator Moriwaki?
Thank you, Mr. President. We agree with the House amendments to SCR 41. SCR 41 is an important resolution asking the Digital Equity Office to look at unserved areas in the state for broadband connectivity. What this amendment does is to remove the overly specific language pertaining to allocation of funds and makes technical non-substantive amendments. Amendments to SCR 108. 108, again, is affirming our commitment to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. Also important is the endorsement of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, all important to our future in addressing climate change. We are making non-substantive amendments for purposes of clarity and consistency.
Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 41 HD1 and SCR 108 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 35, House Draft 1, and 215, House Draft 1.
Senator Kim.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR 35 SD1 and SCR 215 SD1 and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoy.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Senator Kim?
Mr. President, for SCR 35 SD1, the House version added UH Manoa to partner with UH West Oahu to provide a nursing program similar to the UH Hilo program. And for SCR 215 SD1, the House reverted back to the original language contained in SCR 215, which requested UH to examine the feasibility and accessibility of developing and implementing a nursing program at the Honolulu Community College.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 35 HD1 and SCR 215 HD1.
On page 64, Senate Concurrent Resolution number 161, House Draft 1, and 178, House Draft 1.
Senator Chang.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR 161 SD1 and SCR number 178 SD1 and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Chang.
For SCR 161, the House draft requests the task force rather than HHFDC conduct the study. For SCR 178, the House draft creates an expedited process to contract DLNR review. Both House drafts are sensible, and I agree with that.
Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 161 HD1 and SCR 178 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1, House Draft 1, Senate Concurrent Resolution number 102, House Draft 1, and 133, House Draft 1.
Senator Sen Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR number 1 SD1, SCR number 102 SD1, SCR number 133 SD1, and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
For SCR number 1, the House's amendments were just technical, and it's basically one of the deafblind task force main resolutions. As far as SCR number 102, the auditor requested it go back to the original language, and I'm in agreement with that, which is the HD1 version. And similarly for SCR number 133, the House's version goes back to the original language, and which is supported by the State Commission on the Status of Women. And for those reasons, I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 1 HD1, SCR 102 HD1, and SCR 133 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 26, House Draft 1.
Senator Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing with the amendments made by the House to SCR number 26 and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House's amendments were useful additions to this resolution that would ask Congress to look into the problem of illegal texts. It suggests Congress consult with the Federal Trade Commission in addition to other agencies, and I believe that's a good addition and urge my colleagues to support it. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 26 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 138, House Draft 1.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR 138 SD1 and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This measure just recognizes the 50th anniversary of the first bike lane in Hawaii. The House made technical and non-substantive amendments.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 138 HD1.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 205, House Draft 1.
Senator Inoue.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR 205, Senate Draft 1, and agree to said amendments.
Senator Decoy.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Inoue.
Mr. President, the House amendments do not change the resolution language considerably, so there is no reason to disagree.
Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 205 HD1.
We have no further business, Mr.
Are
President.
there any announcements today? Senator Kidani.
Mahalo, Mr. President. Over the last several school days, our kids and grandkids have brought home reminders to their families that this week has been designated Teacher Appreciation Week. For most of us, I don't think we need reminders for this. For families with school-aged youngsters, our teachers have in many respects been true lifesavers. For much of 2020, teachers were critical in providing continuing education through remote learning. Those parents who were home to monitor long-distance classwork gained a new appreciation for the hard work that teachers put in every day with our students. Our teachers had to adapt to technology, create new lesson plans, and find new ways to connect with students to make sure our keiki continue to grow and thrive even under the most difficult of circumstances. As students returned to the classroom in 2021, prioritizing students' welfare, health, and safety was given added weight to teachers' responsibilities. Isolation, masking, and other safety protocols have impacted students' mental health, and test results have shown that the turmoil of the last 2 years took its toll on student academic achievement. In these times of high anxiety, teachers have been threatened and suffered verbal abuse, but continue to work even harder to help students catch up and persevere. It's been a rough 2 years for them and for all of us. I would argue that in many ways, teaching is the most important profession in our society. Teachers impart knowledge, inspire their students to success, and build futures. We are obligated to appreciate them not only this week, but every day of every week. Mr. President, as your chair for education, I am grateful to you and my colleagues for the investments and successful futures that we have made in our budget and in the bills that we passed today. Especially important are the bills such as Senate Bill 2184 that funds various aspects of digital instruction and learning. And I am especially pleased that we are passing Senate Bill 2819, which finally amends statute to assure that our teachers are fairly compensated and duly rewarded for their professional development initiatives that ultimately benefit our students. We have had an historic opportunity to support our public education system this year, and I believe we have done so while addressing many other critical needs to build a better Hawaii. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Senator Nishihara.
Reminder that May 13th is the end of the Senate's food bank drive. Thank you.
And Senator Nishihara, thank you for undertaking the task to coordinate that on behalf of the Senate. Thank
So
you.
my staff will continue to collect these items up until the 13th.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Not, the chair has two. The leadership meeting scheduled for immediately after this session has been terminated in lieu of a potential lunch that is being provided by several of our colleagues. The second, to each and every one of you and to all of your staff, to all of our support agency staff. I can't express the gratitude and appreciation that I've had as you have practiced safety protocols and tried to ensure that we would not be affected by COVID in a way that disrupted our ability to do our business. And as we have finished the 59th legislative day and come to this conclusion, the second announcement is on Thursday for Sine Die in the Senate chamber and gallery, we will have a mask optional policy for the last day. With that, Senator Decoit.
I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, May 5th.
Senator Favela.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. If there are no objections from the members, the Senate will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday.